Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for the message. Okay.
Okay, good. It's time. It's 9 a.m. Let me advance the slide. And Lim, when you are ready, you may begin.
恭请大德圣体，维持法会及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我如何了生脱世离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha, with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, listen the wonderful Dharma will to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto sucheto ye alahati san miao san puto che. Wu shang shen shen wei miao fa, bai qian wan jie nan zao yi. Wo jin jian wen de shou che, yan jie ru lai zhen shi yi. Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Buddha's Bodhisattvas, all Venerable Master and all good knowing advisors, welcome back to this week's exploration of actually what we're doing is we are exploring the Dharma using the Medicine Master Sutra as the text, which is why sometimes we tend to go through the text a bit slower than as what might be expected. And if there's a theme that comes up in the text, for example, the current theme right now is giving, then my aim is to hopefully provide everyone with a I wouldn't say comprehensive, but with a really good idea about giving, to cover most areas as how the Buddha presented giving, so that people get depending on where you are along the path of your practice, you get a good idea about how you may start or how you may increase giving. And for today, we will continue with the Bodhisattva, how a Bodhisattva gives. So we've done all the giving that the Buddha has taught us, or rather we covered the basics of what the Buddha has taught us. So today is probably the final of the inspirational part, which is how great beings like Bodhisattvas do their giving. Okay, but before we get there, let's chant Medicine Master Buddha's name 7 times. I'm going to invite everyone to join me in putting our palms together. Namo, quelling disasters, lending life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, lending life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, lending life, medicine master, Buddha, 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 medicine master, does come one, medicine master, does come one, medicine master, does come one, medicine master, does come one. Okay, before we start, I know Tan would like to continue. She has from her sharing from last week. Does anyone else have anything, any questions, any remarks, anything else to share? Okay, if you do, but you don't want to say it right now, you can type it into the chat box. Okay, so okay, this is where we stopped last week, the Bodhisattva's first ground, and this slide and the next slide is just to refresh everyone's memories, to bring everyone back up to speed. So who is speaking? What you're reading right now was spoken by Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva. So in the sutras, sometimes not all the parts are spoken by the Buddha. So this part was spoken by Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva with Shakyamuni Buddha in front of him, and they were in the heaven of comfort from others' transformations. I think this is the highest heaven of the form realm. And this heaven apparently has a royal palace. I guess if you are the leader or the king of the heaven, then you have a royal palace. And all of them, all Shakyamuni Buddha, Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva, and all great Bodhisattvas, they were all there. They say together with a gathering of great Bodhisattvas. So I'm not going to go through this slide. I'll just show it. You can revisit it if you want through YouTube. And the next slide, this was the reason why the Bodhisattva was practicing. Okay, I'll go back. This slide shows you all the things. I'm sorry. Let me. Okay, this slide shows Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva explaining who becomes a first stage Bodhisattva. Okay, now that I have my bearings right. Okay, so someone who does all this, which is really important if you want to be a Bodhisattva. Okay, if you ever wondered, how do you become a first stage Bodhisattva? Well, this is the list. Okay, if you can do all of this, or you try your best, and you do all of this every time you get the chance, or you create the chance, with these reasons, okay? So not just doing it, but doing it with the right intention, okay, or with the right vows. You can say that your intention can be reflected in your vows. So you do it with these intentions, okay? Then this is what Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva says. He says, disciples of the Buddha, when Bodhisattvas bring forth this kind of thoughts, they put compassion foremost. Their wisdom increases. They are drawn in by clever expedients. They maintain most superior deep thoughts. They contemplate and distinguish the limitless powers of the Thus Come Ones. Okay. As we go forth from here, All this text is from the first ground of the Avatamsaka Sutra or the Flower Adornment Sutra, and I won't be explaining as much as I don't think I can do a better job than Vajratrashri Bodhisattva. If anyone has any questions, if there's anything that seems unfamiliar, just unmute your mic or type it into the chat box. But what I'll be doing is I'll be just reading mostly from the slides. He continues by saying, with the power of courage and the power of wisdom, their unobstructed wisdom manifests. They have compliant and spontaneous wisdom. Okay, who is he talking about right now? He's talking about any one of you who wants to be a bodhisattva. Okay, which is basically why you want to go to the Pure Land. You want to go to the Pure Land because it's a lot easier there to learn how to be a bodhisattva. So he's speaking about people like that. If you ever had the wish that you want to be a bodhisattva, or you're making the wish right now, this is who he's talking to you. Okay, he continues. He says, they can accept all Buddha's dharmas. They use wisdom to teach and transform that is vast and great as the Dharma realm, ultimately like empty space, to the exhaustion of the boundaries of the future. Disciples of the Buddha, meaning all of you, when bodhisattvas bring forth this kind of thoughts, they immediately transcend the ground of ordinary people and enter the position of a bodhisattva. They are born in the household of the dust-come ones. No one can pronounce any faults in their lineage. They abandon the worldly desires and enter the way of transcendence. So, meaning you become a sage. You are you're not ordinary anymore. You transcend. Okay. They obtain the dharmas of bodhisattvas. They enter into the sameness of the 3 periods of time. Within the dust-come one's family, they are certain to obtain unsurpassed bodhi, meaning become a Buddha. When bodhisattvas dwell in dharma such as this, it is called dwelling on the bodhisattva's ground of happiness, because of the connection with non-moving. So the first ground, or the first stage of a bodhisattva, is called the bodhisattva's ground of happiness. Okay. Disciples of the Buddha, when bodhisattvas dwell on the ground of happiness, they accomplish much happiness, much pure faith, much delight, much bliss, much elation, much enthusiasm, much courage, much freedom from contention, much absence of troubling, and much absence of anger. Okay, if this doesn't inspire you to be a bodhisattva, I'm not sure what will. Says, disciples of the Buddha, when bodhisattvas dwell on the ground of happiness, they give rise to happiness because they are mindful of all Buddha's dharmas. They give rise to happiness because they are mindful of all bodhisattvas. They give rise to happiness because they are mindful of bodhisattvas' practices. They give rise to happiness because they are mindful of the purity of all paramitas. Okay, let's continue. They give rise to happiness because they are mindful of the supremacy of all bodhisattvas' grounds. They give rise to happiness because they are mindful of all bodhisattvas' indestructibility. They give rise to happiness because they are mindful of the dust-come one's teaching and transforming of living beings. They give rise to happiness because they are mindful of the ability to benefit living beings. They give rise to happiness because they are mindful of entry into all dust-come one's wisdom and experience. We can take a short pause here and just contrast what the beginner bodhisattva, the first ground bodhisattva, between what he's mindful of, okay, and what we are mindful of. What are we mindful of every day? What are you going to have for maybe breakfast? What are you going to have for lunch and dinner? What clothes you're going to wear? What are you going to do later? What else? Laundry. What are we mindful of? We are mindful of a lot of things. But has any of our mindfulness the same or approaching the first ground bodhisattva? Okay. Carrying on, it says, they also have this thought: I give rise to happiness because I have turned away from and left behind all worldly states. I give rise to happiness because I draw near to all Buddhas. I give rise to happiness because I have left all grounds of ordinary people. I give rise to happiness because I draw near the grounds of wisdom. I give rise to happiness because I eternally cut off all evil destinies. Okay, basically what he's saying here is this is what we are mindful of, but he's left all this behind. Okay. I give rise to happiness because I am a place of reliance for all living beings. That's very interesting. Okay. I give rise to happiness because I see all dust come once. I give rise to happiness because I give rise to the experiences of all Buddhas. I enter into the sameness with all Bodhisattvas. I give rise to happiness because I have left behind all alarming, hair-raising, and other such experiences far behind. Okay, this last line is usually attributed to why it's called the ground of happiness. It's because everything that we find scary, everything that we don't want to happen to us, all the misfortunes, all the afflictions, all the sufferings that we have to endure, all the ignorance of when things happen to us, we don't even know why. The Bodhisattva knows that all these things will never happen to him anymore, him or her anymore. He or she will never experience all those things ever again. And that's the major reason why it's called the ground of happiness. It is in such stark contrast to the prior existence, which is basically our kind of existence, that in one of the earlier sites that we read, the Bodhisattva spontaneously has all this happiness. Okay, now so why is it called the ground of happiness? Okay, let's have Vajratrashari Bodhisattva explain himself instead of me. So this is his explanation. He says, and why? He says, once these Bodhisattvas attain the ground of happiness, they leave all fears behind. That is to say, fear of death, fear of the evil destinies, fear of the awesome virtue of the great assembly. All such fears are eternally left behind. Some of you may be asking, what's fear of awesome virtue of the great assembly? We've covered this before in one of our previous sessions. Basically, the great assembly means, say you are, it means literally in front of the Buddha and other great Bodhisattvas. For us, it might be, say, in front of Shufu, for example, if you've ever had the privilege and the conditions to be in front of Shufu, say being in front of a lot of monks and nuns that you really respect and they have awesome virtue and deportment, and there's a, it feels different being around these people compared to being in front of like regular ordinary people. There's a sense of you are more mindful of your own behavior. You're automatically put on your best. And why? Because they have awesome virtue. So for some people, they feel a sense of shame because they know that they could do better, but they're not. For example, they could be, they have habits that sometimes they indulge in instead of trying their best to transform, something like that. Sometimes, say, you are required to speak in front of these people. Shufu would have the lay people and his monks and nuns take turns to speak. And speaking in front of an audience, especially if some of them understand the Dharma really well, can be very intimidating. There's a fear there. So this fear is left behind. So that's kind of what that means. Tan says they can read us though. Yes, too. There's another facet to this, which is that if you are aware, you are also aware that your thoughts are not private. This, I recall a story in Ajahn Mun's autobiography or biography, I can't tell the difference, in which he was trying to teach one of his fellow monks, and the fellow monk realized that Ajahn Mun could read the thoughts in his mind, and as a result he got so scared. He got so scared that he actually left, and Ajahn Mun regretted and said, from now on I better not let anyone know I can read, see their thoughts, something like that. Yeah, so that's one major reason too. So not only you have to, you want to act as your best, but suddenly your thoughts, if people can read your thoughts, that's very scary too. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. It says, and why? It is because these bodhisattvas are free from the thought of self. They do not even cherish their own bodies, how much the less wealth and possessions. Therefore, they have no fear of not staying alive. They do not seek offerings from others, but only give to other living beings. Therefore, they have no fear of a bad reputation. They have left the view of self far behind and have no thought of self. Therefore, they have no fear of death. So if you are not selfish, if you never think about yourself, and you place other people's well-being ahead of yours, this is what happens. Okay. He continues, says, they themselves know that after death they will certainly not be apart from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Therefore they have that's a typo. It should be, therefore they have no fear of evil destinies. Their intent and inclinations in all worlds are unequal. How much the less surpass. Therefore, let me read that again. Their intent and inclinations in all worlds are unequal. How much the less surpass. Therefore, they have no fear of the awesome virtue of the Great Assembly. Bodhisattvas in that way leave all alarming, hair-raising, and other such experiences far behind. So, that second sentence, their intent and inclinations in all worlds are unequal. You can read unequal two ways. One is what they do is always the best. Okay, that means everything they do is right. Unequal. Another way of looking at it is that whatever they do, they're always trying their best. So with the right intention, their intent and inclinations, meaning the heart behind what they do, is always pure. It's never for selfish reasons, and they always try their best. That's how you have no fear of the awesome virtue of the Great Assembly. Even if they can read your thoughts, there's nothing to fear, because you know that you're trying your best. Yeah, so that's one lesson that we can all learn from there. Okay. Disciples of the Buddha, these bodhisattvas take great compassion as foremost. They have vast, great intent and inclinations which cannot be destroyed. They intensely and diligently cultivate all good roots which become accomplished. Okay, great compassion. We've talked about great compassion before. In Sanskrit, it is called Maha Karuna. Maha means great or big. Karuna is compassion. What's the difference between great compassion and regular compassion? Regular compassion is mostly defined as the recognition of the suffering of other living beings. Meaning, if we are aware that other living beings either are suffering or are enduring hardship, or that one time or another in their lives, they will. That's what compassion means. Sometimes it is accompanied by a wish to help them out of their suffering, but sometimes not. Does not really require that. Great compassion is different from compassion in two things. One is the agency, meaning normally for compassion, people that you really care for or people you have an affinity with, you feel compassion for them. But there are some people who sometimes they just don't, even though they might be suffering, they don't invoke the same feelings of compassion as, say, someone close to you. Okay. For a bodhisattva, someone who practices great compassion is different. Every living being affects them the same way. Okay? But that only makes sense if you look at the second component of great compassion, which is they make a vow, or they tell themselves that they see themselves as being, I used to use the word responsible. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but basically they see themselves as an active role in trying to reduce the suffering of other people. So they do what they can. They don't just let the person suffer by themselves. They try their best to reduce that person's suffering. So from a Buddha's point of view, or say from a Mahayana point of view, that would mean ultimately getting the person to end their suffering themselves. From sometimes our point of view, we only think about helping someone to reduce suffering, but from the Bodhisattva's point of view, the ultimate goal is how can I step by step lead this person on the path where they are able to end their own suffering. Because ultimately you can't really end anyone's suffering. They have to want to do it themselves. They have to want to practice and cultivate. So that's the Bodhisattva's vow. So that's what great compassion is. They see themselves as, kind of being responsible to help all living beings on the path to end suffering. Okay. So Vajrasattva Bodhisattva says this is how he does it. He says that is through increasing faith, through augmenting pure faith, through pure understanding, through decisive faith, through becoming sympathetic, through accomplishing great kindness, through having no weariness or laziness of mind, through adornment with repentance and reform. This is a long list, okay? Through accomplishing forbearance, through respectfully heeding the Buddha's instructions, through cultivating and accumulating good roots day and night without becoming tired, through drawing near good knowing advisors, like how we're doing right now, through constant delight in the Dharma, through seeking learning without satiation, through properly contemplating in accord with the Dharma one has heard. All this has to do with all of us right now. Heeding the Buddha's instructions, cultivating and accumulating good roots. This is just observing the precepts, trying our best to practice generosity, drawing near good knowing advisors. We are doing all of that right now virtually. We are in a group of good knowing advisors. Constant delight in the Dharma. I'm having delight right now in the Dharma, and I hope you are having delight too. Seeking learning without satiation, meaning you always want to discover more of yourself, of your own mind, and your own potential and the Buddha's teachings. And through properly contemplating in accord with the Dharma one has heard. So whatever you hear, you try to put it into practice. You try to understand it. You try to figure it out what it means. Then you try it out, and you do that again and again and again. Okay, like I said, this is a long list. So it says through having no reliance or attachment of mind, through not hankering profit, fame, or respect, through not seeking the necessities of life, through bringing forth the jewel-like thought without satiation, through seeking the thus come one's powers, fearlessnesses, and the dharmas special to a Buddha, through seeking all paramitas, dharmas that aid the way, through freedom from all flattery and deceit, through being able to practice as is spoken, through always guarding true speech, through not defiling the dust come one's household, through not renouncing the Bodhisattva precepts, through bringing forth the thought for all knowledge, unmoving like the king of mountains, through not abandoning all worldly matters, yet accomplishing the way of world transcendence, through accumulating assisting Bodhisattva dharmas without weariness, through constantly seeking the superior... Okay, let me try that again. Through constantly seeking the superiorly superior, especially supreme way. Oh my, that's almost like a tongue twister. Superiorly superior, especially supreme way. That means the way to become a Buddha. That's a long list. Did anyone count how many that was? I didn't, but if you did, please tell me. Okay. Oh, let me see. Did I miss one slide? Okay, so that's the end of the list. Okay, so disciples of the Buddha. When the Bodhisattva accomplishes such purification and regulations of the grounds, it is called securely dwelling on the Bodhisattva's ground of happiness. The Bodhisattva who dwells on this ground of happiness is able to accomplish such great vows, such great vigor, such great efficacy. That is, he brings forth vast, great, pure, decisive understanding, and uses all kinds of objects to make offerings and to worship all Buddhas, omitting non-vast and great... okay, sorry. That I think there's a typo. I think you should read omitting none. Okay. Then comma, vast and great as the Dharma realm, ultimate as empty space, exhausting the boundaries of the future throughout all numbers of kalpas without cease. Okay, I just wanted to point out, if you look right at the top, the second line, it says purification. If you ever wondered how you purify, when you come across the word to purify, the previous slides, that's how you purify. Okay. Okay, now we go to the vows. I did not include all the vows that the Bodhisattva makes. I just included the 4 major ones. It says 5. It says he further makes great vows, vowing to receive all Buddha's Dharma will, vowing to gather in all Buddha's Bodhi, vowing to protect all Buddha's teachings, vowing to maintain all Buddha's Dharmas, vast and great as the Dharma realm, ultimate as empty space, exhausting the boundaries of the future throughout all numbers of kalpas without cease. Okay, so that's the Bodhisattva's first great vow. Second one, vowing that in all worlds, when a Buddha appears in a world, descending from Tushita heaven, entering the womb, dwelling in the womb, being born, living home, accomplishing the way, speaking Dharma, and manifesting Nirvana, he will go to them all, meaning the Bodhisattva will go to them all, draw near to and make offerings, act as the head of the assembly, receiving and practicing the proper Dharma, in every place at one time turning, vast and great as a Dharma realm, ultimate as empty space, exhausting the boundaries of the future, throughout all numbers of kalpas without cease. Meaning, every time a Buddha appears in the world, the Bodhisattva makes a vow that he's going to be there. And if you compare that to regular people like us, even a sutra lecture, sometimes we find it so difficult to go to, even through Zoom. Whereas a Bodhisattva, is on a totally different plane. He commits to when a Buddha appears in the world, and he does all this. Which also, interestingly enough, gives you a question mark kind of different perspective when you read about the Buddha's disciples, like Venerable Sariputra, Venerable Mahakasyapa, Venerable Ananda, who, are they who they appear to be. Okay, moving on. He further makes great vows. This is number 3. It says, vowing that all the Bodhisattva practices, vast, great, limitless, purifying and regulating all grounds, characterized by generality, characterized by particularity, characterized by identity, characterized by difference, characterized by production, characterized by extinction, all Bodhisattva practices, be spoken as they truly are, to teach and transform all, causing them to accept and practice, and their thoughts to grow and increase, vast and great as the Dharma realm, ultimate as empty space, exhausting the boundaries of the future throughout all numbers of kalpas without cease. Okay, this is basically, you can say this is related to great compassion, where he uses the Dharma and all kinds of expedients to get people to transform, to accept, to practice and transform themselves. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 4, vowing that all the realms, again another typo, vowing that all the realms of living beings, those with form, without form, with thought, without thought, neither with thought nor without thought, egg-born, womb-born, moisture-born, transformationally born, born in the 3 realms, who have entered the 6 destinies in all such places of rebirth, comprised of name and form, all such categories, meaning in any case where they are living beings. Okay, any category of living beings, he says, I shall teach and transform, causing them once and for all to cut off all worldly destinies, and causing them to dwell in the way of all wisdom, vast and great as the Dharma realm, ultimate as empty space, exhausting the boundaries of the future throughout all numbers of kalpas without cease. So this is no matter where you go, the Bodhisattva will always be there to try to help the person practice, the living being practice. Okay. This is the final vow that I've included in today's sharing. It says, vowing that all worlds, vast, great, limitless, gross, subtle, disarrayed, upside down or orderly, whether entering, moving or going out, with distinctions like chakra's net, in the 10 directions of limitless, dissimilar varieties. Apparently, the Avatamsaka Sutra describes it all. There are all kinds of different worlds, not just our kind of world, but there are many different kinds of worlds in the Dharma realm. So he's saying in all these kind of worlds, okay, what a Bodhisattva will do is what? Okay, let's continue reading. His wisdom will understand them all with direct knowledge and perception, vast and great as the Dharma realm, ultimate as empty space, exhausting the boundaries of the future through all numbers of kalpas without cease. So he wants to know all worlds. Why? Because worlds have living beings. So if you know the world, you can know the living beings and you can help living beings. Okay. There are a further 37 vows that the Bodhisattva on the first ground makes. And these 37 vows plus this 5 that we just covered are just like general vows. In fact, what he does is he makes limitless vows, basically. Yeah. So I won't go through the 37 vows here. If you're interested, you can go research on your own. So disciples of the Buddha, the Bodhisattva dwelling on the ground of happiness, brings forth such great vows, such great vigor, such great efficacy. Using these kinds of vow doors as foremost, he fulfills 1,000,000 asamkhayas of great vows. Okay. How can the Bodhisattva do this? Well, because he's on the ground of happiness. He's very happy. When you are very happy, you can do all this too, and it doesn't seem difficult at all. No, I can't say that because I don't know. But it doesn't feel like how we would think it feels, I guess. Yeah. Which is not saying anything. Okay, let's continue. So, disciples of the Buddha, after the Bodhisattva has made such great vows, he then obtains a beneficent mind, a compliant mind, an accordant mind, a quiet mind, a humble mind, a moistened mind, an unmoving mind, a non-turbid mind. Okay, that's a better answer. Okay, he becomes one of pure faith and has the operative use of faith. He can believe in the dust come one's original practices which are entered, which is believing in the accomplishment of all the paramitas, believing in the entry to all the supreme grounds, believing in the accomplishment of the powers, believing in the perfection of the fearlessnesses. Okay, what's next? Believing in the growth of the indestructible, uncommon Buddha Dharmas, believing in the inconceivable Buddha Dharmas, believing in the production of the Buddha states which are not to either side of the middle, believing in the according entry to the limitless states of a dust come one, and believing in the accomplishment of the fruit. To mention the essential, it is because he believes in all Bodhisattva's practices up to and including the description of all powers of the dust come one's wisdom ground. Okay, that's a lot to take in. Disciples of the Buddha, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva who dwells upon this, the first ground, for the most part acts as king of Jambudvipa. He is powerful, honored and sovereign, and constantly protects the proper Dharma. He is able to use great giving to gather in living beings. He is skilled at ridding living beings of the defilement of stinginess. He constantly practices great giving without exhaustion or end. So that's interesting. The first line, he says, for the most part acts as king of Jambudvipa. If yes, I shared the book called the Buddhist Cosmos, written by a Theravada monk, and he compiled a very thick book of everything the Buddha's teachings had to say about how about the existence of the Dharma realm. And so if you read further in the book, and Shufu has also talked about our continent of Jambudvipa, in Buddhist cosmology, we all live on the, I don't remember, in north, south, east, west. We are definitely not north. North is called Uttara Kuru. I think we are on the west. And our continent is called Jambudvipa. So what Vajrayatraya Bodhisattva is saying is that a first ground Bodhisattva usually is reborn as a king of the entire continent of Jambudvipa. Yeah, it's not like a continent like how we see the world. Buddhist cosmology is slightly different. It does not correspond exactly to, like, we have the Australian continent, we have the Antarctica continent. Buddhist cosmology is slightly different. You can't really draw a parallel from there. I think you can, but what you can do is you can safely say the whole Earth, the entire Earth, is on the Jambudvipa continent. Yeah. Okay. So giving, pleasing words, beneficial practice, and identity in actions, all such karma that is created is not separate from mindfulness of the Buddha, not separate from mindfulness of the Dharma, the Sangha, of the Bodhisattvas of identical practices, from the Paramitas, from mindfulness of all grounds. Continuing, is not separate from mindfulness of the powers, of the fearlessnesses, of the uncommon Buddha Dharmas, of the endowment with the wisdom of all modes. Okay. Giving, pleasing words, beneficial practice, and identity in actions, these are called the four attractions. This is how a Bodhisattva gathers in living beings. So as the Bodhisattva is doing this, his mind is always on the list that we just read through just now. He further makes the following reflection: I should, among all living beings, be a leader, be supreme, be especially supreme, be wonderful, be subtle and wonderful, be superior, be unsurpassed, be a guide, be a general, be a chief, up to and including being one with the wisdom of all wisdoms, upon whom one may rely. He sees himself as being responsible. He doesn't say, I'm only a first stage Bodhisattva, Guanyin, let Guanyin handle this because he's more capable, and Guanyin is a 10th stage Bodhisattva, or let Maitreya Bodhisattva. He doesn't do that. if there's anything that he sees should be done, the Bodhisattva does it himself. Disciples of the Buddha, this Bodhisattva further makes these following reflections. All Buddhas, proper Dharmas are so profound, so quiet, so still, so extinct, so empty, so markless, so wishless, so undefiled, so limitless, so vast and great, while ordinary beings in their minds fall into deviant views. I'm going to take a slight pause here and just tell Tan, I know it's 9:45, just give me a few more minutes, let me finish this section of slides and then I'll come back to you. So here he's describing beings living in samsara, meaning still under the ground, still subject to rebirth and not in control. So people like us. So here he's describing how we are covered by ignorance, we erect the banner of pride and arrogance. So not only do we have pride and arrogance, but when he says it in such a way, you erect the banner, is like we are proud that we are proud and arrogant. We are proud of our pride and arrogance, basically. It talks about thirsty love and the dense forest of flattery and deceit, and we cannot pull ourselves out of our habits of ours. And says the last line, with greed, hatred, and stupidity, we create all kinds of karma which day and night increases and grows. So this refers to our thoughts all the time. Earlier we spoke about how the Bodhisattva is mindful of all those things, all the Bodhisattva practices of all his elders, the other Bodhisattvas, as compared to us. What are we mindful of? What do we think about on a daily basis? So that's a question that we have to answer ourselves. Or have we ever paid attention to what goes on in our thoughts, speech, and action? So he goes on to describe how these living beings live. And we flow along in desire, the flow of ignorance and the flow of views. And he says, within the field of the three realms, the sprouts of suffering are repeatedly produced. Go on. It says, disciples of the Buddha, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva accords with such great compassion and great kindness. Using deep, profound thought, at the time of dwelling on the first ground, he gives away objects without grudge or stinginess. Seeking the Buddha's great wisdom, he cultivates great renunciation. Wherever he possesses, he is able to give it away completely. So this is, from here onwards, the slides talk about how the Bodhisattva gives, what he gives, and how he gives. We've just gone through why he gives, because he sees that living beings living in ignorance, we don't really know how to pull ourselves out of suffering. So this slide says that because of that, because of great compassion and great kindness, he gives away objects without grudge or stinginess. So I'm going to stop here for today. And then next week we can continue on the Bodhisattva's giving. And in the meantime, let me call on Tan. Tan, are you ready?
Amitabha Dhamma Master. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. So Tan has, so last week she said she shared 2 stories related to Medicine Master Buddha. And today she says she has a long one. I'm not quite sure what is the story, so I'll let Tan tell you herself. Okay.
Amitabha. A long story just because it's related to me directly and personally. So actually, the very first time that I encountered Medicine Master Buddha name was in my very teenage, again about 18, when I was 18. So I just happened to, go through the kitchen of our monastery in Belgium. And then I overheard a monk who talked to 2 people about a death of a passing away person and the name of Medicine Master Buddha recitation. So I just stopped over for a few seconds and then you're just wondering what is that name, But after that, I went away. And about a couple of years later on, I lost my grandparents. So my grandmother went first, and 2 years after, my adopted grandfather went. Because they were exceptional people who were able to make me better. So their passing away, really, how to say that, made me like, I became very hateful, angry, because my whole world shattered. And because of that, I start to, how to say that, hurting myself somehow without knowing it, or maybe knowing it purposely. I ate, only bread, and just want to somehow rejoin them somehow, somewhere. And bit by bit, I start, to bleed whenever I brush my teeth, and bruises, showing up, just because the way I was living, through that anger and hatred, just because of the loss of my grandparents. So I became quite dizzy. So didn't know why, but I had to go to doctor, and then he saw my bruises, and then he made a blood test, and then he said that I have platelets issues, and then he said I can go home, and then he let me know. So at the end of the day, he just personally came to the door of our house and tell me to go straight away to hospital to be hospitalized, because it's very severe, he said, and very serious. So because I was so careless, because I want to go anyway to rejoin my grandparents somehow. And so I just went, did what he told me to do. And then I think he rang my families, to let them know. So when he came back to see me in the room, he explained that what I have can be very serious, because my blood can run like water. So if whatever holes in my body is just can go through, just run away like that, because the platelets were so low. I think the normal platelets of a normal cells should be about 150 to 250 platelets count for blood cell to be healthy and normal. Mine is only about 20,000 at that time, so that's why it's so runny. But anyway, I wasn't scared, I didn't feel any pain, just like tired, just like very, just nothing. But because he explained that my blood can be, running everywhere, then I thought, if my family knows about it, and if they come to see me, if I has to die, if they come and see me with blood everywhere, it's just like gonna be a horror movie, something like that. So that made me thought about that monk who talked about the dying person and the name of the medicine master Buddha. So I asked my young sister to go to borrow Medicine Master Buddha Sutra from our temple, with that thought in mind that I'm gonna ask the help of that Buddha to help me to die clean, not ugly, so not to scare my family members. Yeah. So anyway, so in the meantime, an old Spanish woman, I think in her late 70s, was hospitalized as well, and joined my room. So we were two people together in our room, and she had severe stomach ulcers, and she was groaning, but really non-stop at all. But anyway, when I got my sutra, I just start to read. I didn't care about other people too much. So I start to read, just like the way I read, at the temple. Whoever read, I just read that way, just like following people, following the crowd like that. But at the third day, things start to get a bit nonsense. So I start to get a bit frustrated, because I just felt that I just couldn't understand whatever I read. So I decided to read it from the title, letter by letter, word by word, sentence by sentence, just to read to try to understand something. So after a few pages, I suddenly burst in tears. I choke because so deeply, I can, I felt how boundlessly a Buddha, just like this, his generosity, his kindness, compassion could be, comparing to me, a little person, so selfish and small, just because I lost on 2 people, I make my whole family sad and suffer of worries just because of my attitude, for all that time. When the Buddha, this Master Buddha, who is totally happy and ready and willing to give everything to whoever who need, and in so many ways, and we can see that through his 12 vows. It's just so unbelievable. And so from then onwards, I read with so much respect and gratitude, just with that thought of wishing to meet a Buddha one day. But in meantime, for all that day that went through, without realizing it, my roommate, that old Spanish woman, she stopped groaning. Because when I read the sutra, I used to hear her sound groaning all the time. But only one day, just like, oh, it's so quiet, no sound. So I had a look at her, and she was very like calm, just lay flat on her bed and looking at the ceiling, just contemplating something like very focused. And yeah, her face was very yeah, she was at peace. Maybe she has something in mind, I don't know, but she was just unmoving and so calm like that. But it's always make me want to laugh at that time, because she was so different, from every day, the way she wore. But anyway, one day I had to, to get out of my bed, and then she called me, and then she said, "Señorita, you are inteligente," 2 times like that. I didn't know what she meant, at all at the time. But I decided to ask her, do you want to know what I was reading? And she said yes. And she said, oh, it's just about Dr. Buddha, just like your Jesus or your God, but he's the Buddha, a doctor, can help you, can cure you if you want. You want to read just like me a little bit? And she said yes. So I just try to write in a way that she can pronounce Medicine Master Buddha 10 times, and then Kuan Yin Bodhisattva's name 10 times, and then show to her and ask her to pronounce, to see if she can pronounce it. And she managed to pronounce it quite closely. So, and then I tell her, so you, whenever I read, then you can, on your side, try to read 10 times or more if you want each of this name like that. And from that day onwards, whenever I open my sutra, and read, and meantime she took her that paper, open it, and she read 10 times, and each name of the Buddha and Bodhisattva, and then she put aside, and then she just look at the ceiling and just like so calm and quiet like that. It went on like that until the way she was discharged. So when we said our goodbyes, she had that a bit of sadness in her eyes. I just told her, you keep doing what you did here, at home, and you will be fine. But also in the meantime, I noticed the floor of where I was, where I was. The doctors and nurses used to be so, they're in hurry, stress, etc. normal. But by the days so gone, it's just like, not so much sound, not so much shouting or something like that. The people around was speaking like very calm and happy, etc. Even in the community room or common room, the old people who came for look at the TV or read or something like that, their face also changed. They are more useful or something like that. It was very special. So the whole atmosphere, I remember that day is so special because they asked me to go out of my room. So yeah, anyway, but yeah, otherwise, I think I kept practicing reciting his name and also the mantra in my food that they gave me in the hospital. I kept doing that at home when I got discharged and do it at home. And always have the thought that hopefully I can meet a Buddha one day somehow. But I think within a year, I happened to meet Venerable Master JinHe, who came to our temple for 4 days. So my mom told me, oh, Tan, there's a group of monks, Chinese monks who came to our monastery for 4 days. You should come, and see them and listen and hear. And I said, okay, but I was so attached to my, my practice at home, so I didn't care too much. But the last day, my mom reminded me again that today is the last day. You should really come, okay, this time I'm making an effort to go. And when I went to the temple, went up the stairs before entering the Buddha hall, because that big glass door. So I looked through the glass. It looked like very crowded, So when I opened it and put my foot in, wow, it was amazing. I never seen so much monks, in our temple, and it just feel like heaven. Yeah, it was unbelievable. But anyway, I tried to go towards my Vietnamese Dharma master side, but it was so crowded inside, couldn't put your foot in. So I had to go on the other side where Master JinHe and his disciple were. So I happened to face Master JinHe, without willing it. So one of the monks just started to translate about Master JinHe vows, and and at some stage I said, oh, and that's very pretentious, who can claim, to has a, just like the vow Master JinHe said, he can, until this and this and this, become Buddha. Only he, can, become enlightened or become Buddha himself. So for me, when I heard that, I thought, oh, that's very pretentious. But when the vow of saying something like Master JinHe, vow to take over or bear others' sufferings, and then at that time I said, oh, it's clicked with me that this is what I understood from reading Medicine Master Buddha Sutra in the hospital. So I quickly, bow to Master JinHe 3 times with deep apology, and sorry. So when I lift up my head now, and Master JinHe just look at me smiling. But anyway, from that, that's what an encounter. I think later on, I really they had to leave that night. Later on, I think my parents received books that the delegation offered to our temple. So my parents didn't read it, so I took and read it. So it was, I think, Talk on Dharma, Volume 1. That's what the only book that we have in Belgium. So it's just a treasure for me. But anyway, I read it again and again for a long time. I learned, from him. I learned meditation through that book. He said, if you have no teacher, you need to have some teacher to guide you. So in the book has his pictures. I opened his picture and I bowed to him and asked him to be my teacher when learning meditation, the way he taught it in the book. But later on, I want to go to CTTV, to encounter and listen to him more. But it took a long time. So when I had to go, before that, I think, I dreamt of my Dharma master, who told me in 3 years, you can wear the black robe. So I wake up, it's what early morning, and I thought, oh my God, is this that dream or something like that? I thought my Dharma master gonna pass away, but anyway, 3 years later, 2 years later, no, not 2 years later, not that year yet. But anyway, that year, I want to go to CTTB to listen, and then ask my sister, who is in Seattle, to if she can take me there. And I know that she got also temple in Seattle. But somehow we managed to go to Gold Summit, and then to know more on how to get there. And the nuns over there just announced that, oh, Venerable Master just passed away. I was shocked. That's impossible. When? How? And they said, oh, just over a month ago. But they suggested for us to go with them to attend the cremation ceremony. So so we went with them, for a few days down there. And I was so sad. I think at some stage, I was under the tree, and then just shuddered, and then some crying, and some sound under above the tree or in the space, I don't know, but some sounds just say like the physical may be gone, but Buddha Dharma, it just like a star always shining, something like that. But anyway, later on, I somehow things are better, because made affinity with a monastery here and there, and thanks to my sister as well, and all the branches that we encounter later on until today. So all this just to say that only for hearing, Medicine Master Buddha name can bring so much difference in one's life. Even for that old Spanish lady, I have to say. Amitabha, that's all.
That's a
Thank
very
you,
nice. Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's very, very nice very nice story. Yeah. So all of you who are now learning the Dharma, now you know better ways to, if you have someone you care for, they're not around, don't follow Tan's example and eating only bread and become anemic. Okay. There are a lot of better examples that the Buddha teaches us that we can follow. Okay, now let's let me find the slide, and we can dedicate merit. Oh, let me end this slideshow. Okay, I'm still sharing screen, right? You can see the dedication of merit. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Excuse me. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows. 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Alright everyone, hopefully some of you have something to share next week. Okay, we'll see you next week. Bye bye.